And I'm going to deliver a lecture to you tonight, which I haven't lectured in 25 years since I did philosophy. But I have a title for my lecture, and I'm going to give it to you because that's what philosophers do. The title is The Beatles' Revolver 50 Years On, Living in a Post-Revolving, Post-Album World. First, I want to welcome you and introduce the place. And I am Eric Geilker, as you probably know, and my beautiful wife Joyce is here. And we're thrilled to welcome you here tonight to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the release of what many feel to be the best Beatles album ever. Some people think it's the best album ever, Revolver. The band Das Homage will lead us in our celebrations tonight. They'll perform 3 sets. In the first set, they'll play side 1 of the album. Then a very brief, 10-minute, no more, please, very brief break because we want to emulate the experience of listening to the album. One side, flip it. Other side, yeah. So those are the 2 sets. Then we're going to have a bigger break. You can go color some more and do the puzzle. And when we come back, we're going to push these tables out of the way. We're going to crank up the PA a little bit. And we're going to turn the disco ball on. It'll start spinning. Das Homage will transmogrify us into twisting and shouting Beatles marionettes. So we got to work up to this gradually, progressive. Last year at our celebration of Rubber Soul, our soul man Mark Edmondson, he readied us for the music with some introductory remarks packed full of penetrating, philosophical Beatle vision. Yet his remarks are personal, entertaining. Thank you, Mark. He's not here tonight, but his act was impossible to follow and difficult. Very difficult to follow for me, especially. But I gotta say, this year I cast about for a speaker. I thought, well, maybe the best bet would be an out-of-work philosopher. There are lots of I didn't have far to look, as most of you know. Before a steady stream of children in houses, I was a PhD student in the philosophy department at UVA. I TA'd, I taught a bunch of classes, and though I never turned in my dissertation, I have brought the first 233 pages Just kidding. But I am going to lecture you as an ex-philosopher, but I limit my remarks to 15 minutes, which was exactly, I taped it, I recorded, I'm taped, I'm going to get to that. Mark's remarks for 15 minutes, I figured he's the pro, I'll do that. Okay, here's my lecture, The Beatles' Revolver, 50 years on, living in a post-revolving, post-album world. My remarks tonight are going to take the form roughly of a pop song. Verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus. And each chorus is a continuing litany of thanks and shout-outs and thank yous to all you people here, lots of people who've made tonight possible, made the world as we know it right now and as we love it possible. When I mentioned this organizing structure to Frank of Das Homage, the bass player, he reminded me that pop songs also had a solo and a bridge, and I responded, well, I think about the solo, but we got the bridge taken care of as you drove into Blair Park. So verse 1 is living in a post-revolving world. When asked why they chose the title Revolver for the album, Ringo explained, it's because the record goes round and round. Well, I like this answer very, very much. It's because it goes round and round. Yeah, that's great. It's simple, it's unambiguous. I'm going to take this answer, and we're going to go with that tonight. But to be fair, here's Lennon's answer. Lennon asked the same question. His answer is a little less satisfying for pundits like me searching for meaning, but I'm going to share it with you. He said, it's just a name for an LP. There's no meaning to it. Why does everybody want a meaning every time you move? So, meaning, no meaning. I'm going with the meaning round and round. Lennon's a bit peevish here. So it does go round and round. It goes round and round and round. And here, the album here that we have in the alcove, goes round and round at 33 1/3 RPM. Even after the music is done, the record still goes round and round and round. And for many of you beautiful people in this room tonight, that stark heartbeat-like thumping sound, you remember, that stark heartbeat-like thumping sound of the needle stuck in that final groove of the record may evoke memories of late-night study sessions, or even later make-out sessions, when you just couldn't bring yourself to get up, walk across the room, and lift that needle off the record. From the dawn of sound recording in the 1800s, it's been the same. Round and round, revolving. The wax cylinders of Edison, round and round, revolving. Glenn Miller on 78, right there. Round and round, Revolver. Tom Jones, I got it right here. Tom Jones covering Nobel laureate Bob Dylan's Lay Lady Lay. Bob Dylan. Nobel laureate. Round and round, spins round and round. Same old stuff. Nina Simone, I have her here. Nina Simone's Baltimore concert. Wonderful live performance on cassette. Same thing. Round and round and round and round. Marshall Tucker Band on 8-track. Good stuff. Round and round, Revolver. In fact, the 8-track might be the best, most Zen-like example of all because it cycles over and over and over and over and over. Never ending into infinity unless the tape snaps or unless an 8-track deck in your Dodge Dart jams. Furthermore, this rotating, ubiquitous wheel of sound, it's not just interesting. It's not just interesting to us as sound people. It is sui generis. It is a thing unto itself of its own kind. I taught a philosophy of science seminar for non-scientists way back, 1985 actually. It was called Thinking About Science. Stephen Jay Gould's collection of essays, Hen's Teeth and Horse's Toes, had come out just recently in 1985. And so we read an essay in that collection called Kingdoms Without Wheels. The kingdom in question being the animal kingdom. Gould wrote that there are no wheels in the evolutionary story of the animal kingdom, not by chance, but by necessity. I quote, wheels work well, but animals are debarred from them by structural constraints inherited as an evolutionary legacy. Now, given the revolving wheel in our society, the ubiquity of the revolving wheel in our technology, a better choice even for our species to capture the importance of this revolving, this round and round, and Linnaean binomial nomenclature might not be, Homo sapiens, it might be like Homo rotatus or something, Homo revolvus. We have the wheel. It might turn out that whales and dolphins can't think and are smart, but maybe we got the wheel. It goes round and round. That's special, and that's what Stephen Jay Gould very pointedly pointed out in his essay. But then came Apple computer. And then came the iPod. Here's an iPad classic. This is the largest capacity iPod ever made. It's 160 gigabytes. It's my personal favorite iPod. Actually, the classic is not my favorite. The 160 original is my favorite, but this is pretty close. Now, don't worry, Ringo. This thing has a hard drive spinning. It's spinning at massive speeds, not 30, 33, round and round and round, Revolver. But I'm afraid this iPod is almost a dinosaur, kind of like reel-to-reel deck up on the shelf. Most of you music lovers here, you are out there, you've got smartphones, you have music on your smartphones, you got music on your iPhones. iPhones, smartphones, they do not revolve. Smartphones, iPhones, even new iPods, this is a classic, remember. Modern laptops where you stash most of your music, spin your tunes, no, they do not spin. They have SSDs, solid state drives. There are no moving parts. Not only do they not spin. Likewise, when we stream off Spotify, no more round and round, sorry Ringo, but we just no longer go round and round. We no longer spin. In terms of listening to music, after 150 years of Revolver, we now live in a post-revolving world. Well, I turn to my course. Each one of my 3 courses are courses of thanks. And they're thanks to the wonderful, beautiful people who are out here in this room and beyond. But my first course of thanks is to someone who's way beyond. And that is to the couple who made Blair Park, named after the first Supreme Court Justice of the United States appointed by George Washington, John Blair. But the people that made Blair Park a great place to have a celebration were the late Dr. Ernst Otto and Francois Attinger. He was a Swiss citizen, she was French. Both were renowned professors at the University in biomedical engineering before biomedical engineering was even a thing. And they taught at UVA for decades. The attic's full of hardbound dissertations. There's one on the shelf over there. There's 5, if you want to look at them, in the solarium. Full of these dissertations. And they kept and treasured these, and their descendants left them in filing cabinets in the attic. And I've looked at many of them. As I read the heartfelt acknowledgments in the first pages of each of these books, one after the other, a picture emerges of the Attinger's almost superhuman dedication to science. And more importantly, their love of the young scientists whom they trained. The Attingers lived here for more than 40 years, and they took the original 1920 structure of Blair Park and lovingly and very playfully expanded it, adding this room, other rooms, and made it what it is today. Thank you, Ernst and Francois Attinger.
Yeah.
But, as the Beatles would say, tomorrow never knows. Wonderful things come, wonderful things pass. However, the Virginia Outdoors Foundation also, like Revolver, celebrated its 50th anniversary this year. Big shout out to them. Big shout out to this foundation for its 5 decades of preserving what is great about Virginia, including the property where we now sit. Thank you to the Virginia Outdoors Foundation for helping us know a little bit more about tomorrow. With us tonight is a man whose professionalism and patience are exceptional in the Charlottesville Albemarle real estate scene. John Itz. Where are you, John? I know I saw you. Yeah, John Itz. His Charlottesville Country Properties is now a division of Nest. He is the man. Having dealt with real estate since I retired from philosophy 25 years ago, I've seen lots of good, lots of bad, and John surprised Joyce and me with his energy, with his rigor and integrity, and especially his patience shepherding us through some difficult processes. Thank you for being here, John. Thank you for being a good friend and realtor par excellence. Nobody better. Okay, so you move out to the countryside. You want to do the right thing by your neighbor. You want to do the right thing. You want to do the right thing by the land. But what on earth do you do? You know, it's not like there's an owner's manual in the glove box. But there is. There is an owner's manual for Virginians in the glove box. And it is entitled, Welcome to the Country, Things You Need to Know When Moving to Rural Virginia. It is published by the Ballyshannon Fund. Thank you, Fred could not be here tonight. Thank you to Fred Scott for putting this book out. It's an amazing book. We have it on our shelf in it. There were some thank yous. So I'm going to move on to verse 2 of the song, of the lecture, Living in a Post-Album World. Tonight's celebration is not about a song. It's not about an era. It's not even about the Beatles per se. What we're celebrating tonight is an album. An amazing album. It's right there. Revolver. It was released in the U.S. by Capitol Records August 5th, 1966. We're not celebrating on August 5th because this place has no AC, and let me tell you, it's hot. So that's why we're doing it now. Looking around you tonight, it's tough for me to stand here, I guess, and say, oh, we live in a post-album world. Look there. There's hundreds of albums. There's actually 2,000 albums at Blair Park. But I want to propose that it is indeed the case that we live in a post-album world, much in the same way that we live in a post-revolving world. Can you remember your first album? I mean, think about it, your first album. I can. And to be more, to be more specific, I brought it tonight. It is the Moody Blues in Search of the Lost Girl. Oh! Now, a fringe benefit of having parents who live in the same house for 50 years is that when you go back to visit them, you find this album. This is the album, okay? This is not just one I picked up. This is the original one, and staring at this amazing cover art. It's the cover art. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, look at that. Staring at the amazing cover art for hours, I'd sit listening to songs about Timothy Leary and meditation, and song Home. I had no idea what it was about, but I would listen to it for hours. I'd hold this album, I'd hold it, I'd listen straight through side A. I'd get up, I'd cross the room, I'd flip it, side B. Maybe I'd even repeat that sequence. I think many of you beautiful people out there, you music lovers, you folks, you've had similar experiences with early visual experiences with album covers, with albums that you just made a huge impression. Now fast forward to our new millennium. My daughter, Ivy, not here tonight, now at college in Middlebury, Vermont, she came of age in the iTunes era. Her first music purchase came as a series of electrons flowing over a phone line. Yes, it was a phone line back then. Coding into ones and zeros and ending up on the hard drive of her iMac. More importantly, for my point here in verse 2, that purchase was not an album. It was a song. And she hasn't given me permission to tell you all that it was a Hannah Montana song, so I can't. To Ivy's generation, our children, others, they have not grown up holding an album. They have grown up holding a mouse. And they've grown up listening to songs and not albums. iTunes and other music services attempt to maintain a patina of albumness, but it's only surface deep. Click your mouse on iTunes and that album of songs is now organized alphabetically by title, or collated by some cyborg genius with all your other music in one big corporate algorithm playlist. Albums should remain in quotes on iTunes. If it seems like maybe, okay, I have it in for that golden child, new millennium innovator, Apple, as the destroyer of album culture, maybe I do. Consider if we were to stop. Let's stop. Stop measuring time and begin measuring time anew. We're going to measure time anew from the date of the album's demise, and we're going to call it the year PA, post-album. Of course, this kind of thing happens all the time in culture. Happened with the birth of Jesus Christ. They gave us AD, Anno Domini. Islam numbers years from his move to Medina. It's important. The French, they reset to year 1 when they overthrew the monarchy. Khmer Rouge declared the year 0 in 1975. But what would we choose for the definitive year beginning of PA, post-album timekeeping? Well, I can do better than the year. How about the month? How about the day of the month in the year? November 16th, 2010. That is the day, and the month, and the year that the surviving members of the Beatles finally caved to cultural, financial pressures that they had valiantly resisted for years, and they made it such that instead of buying their LP, their cassette, 8-track, or CD of the amazing album Revolver, you should click your mouse and buy Eleanor Rigby, 99 cents. November 16th, 2010, they held out. That's the day, month and year that the entire catalog of the Beatles went online on iTunes. That is the day that the most lovely, the most albumy of albums was offered up for vivisection. We better start thanking people. It's going to get grim here. Okay, second chorus of thanks. The music is to come, I promise. The music is electronically amplified tonight. You see all this equipment? The sun horns here, vintage 1969, the Beatles could have played on that stuff. It's essential to the Beatles sound, essentially to the sound of the later albums, and especially essential to the sound of Revolver. The electronic technology, they tweaked it, they played with it, they broke all the studio rules to make Revolver happen. And in that spirit, and as the guy who will run the soundboard tonight, let me thank some folks. Chris Munson, you here?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris, for your encouragement and your enthusiasm when we first decided here to put sound in at Blair Park. You're a pro, and thank you for recommending, I think it was you, wasn't it, that I get a hold of the PA Bible published by Electric Voice? Yeah. Thank you. That was an amazing autodidactic tool, and I've used it, and I've read every page. Thank you.
Eric, when I saw the PA Bible,
yep.
I thought it was the post-album Bible after you.
Okay, PA, don't get PA public address confused with post-album. Okay, another big shout out. He can't be here tonight. He's actually doing a gig with sound. Is Morgan McLeod, a neighbor and a WTJU sound guru, local sound guy. He did sound for the Beatles band Das Homage when they did a live show on WTJU, and it sounded fantastic. He came out here and helped me with the mix a little bit a few days ago. I often look at myself, and I realize how incredibly, fantastically ignorant a person can be. Joyce often looks at me and thinks exactly the same. So when setting up this room for sound, last year planning to run hundreds of feet of cables, individual cables, this cable, that cable, underneath the floor of the soundboard, back again, blah, blah, blah. I told my friend and neighbor Lee Hale, who lives up in the little cabin just up by the barn, he does sound at the pavilion, smart guy. I said, Lee, I'm going to do this. He said, why don't you just use a snake? Well, what's a snake? Not only did Lee teach me that a snake is a ready-made concatenation of cable and plugs just for exactly the same purpose. Lee provided that 16-channel snake that terminates here, runs all the way to the floor to the soundboard. He gave that to me so that we could have sound tonight. So thank you, Lee Hale. He's not here tonight. But thank you. And speaking of neighbors, some other neighbors who couldn't be here tonight are Carrie and Jed Culver. I promised I would have a shout out for them. Here is my very first. Joyce and I had a Kelly Bronze turkey last year for Thanksgiving. It was so incredible. It was 13 pounds, 13.76 pounds. Amazing. They are roaming on the road when you come up and down Johnny's Deck. And they are truly free range, and they are different. They are substantial. Martin, you've had, right? You'll vouch for that? You were at their event last year? Okay. So I told them I'd put a plug in for them. They have kept the agricultural nature of this mountain. Not only was the property they purchased not turned into a bunch of McMansions, they have kept the agricultural feel and activity going there. Thank you. Just over Buck's Elbow Mountain. There's another mountain, Middle Mountain. Middle Mountain, it's an extraordinary place, kind of like Middle Earth. It's an extraordinary place where two extraordinary people, neighbors Rod and Maggie, Walker, Sue, yeah, okay, go at the back. Yep. They have established the Blue Ridge PRISM. PRISM is an acronym for Partnership for Regional Invasive Species Management. They've worked tirelessly with the help of other Calf Mountain neighbors. Ellen, are you here? Ellen, Braun, Trudy. Yeah, there's Ellen back there. They've worked tirelessly to stem the tide of invasive species in our mountains and in our vicinity. Thank you, Rod, Maggie, for loving this earth. It's the only one we have. Thank you very much. The third verse is called Coloring Inside the Lines. So we got coloring here. We'll put this back out. You can do more coloring. You can do the puzzle. That's fun. Coloring inside the lines. So what if outside these walls we are tonight, folks are living in a post-revolving, post-album world? Tonight, here at Blair Park, led by the outrageous talent of Das Homage, we will spin this album Revolver. We don't care what's happening outside. We are here now. So let's carpe album. Seize the album. Some of you helped to color in the lines of the Revolver album cover posters that we set out tonight. Some drew with crayons, some drew with colored pencils. We put out psychedelic neon highlighters. I thought that'd be fun. Haven't done that in a while, have you? Have you colored? Many people. Javon, I know you have, because you probably color a lot with your Montessori kids, but thank you for coloring. It's fun coloring. Did you know that Revolver received a Grammy in 1966 for Best Album Cover Art? The best album cover of 1966. And we get to draw on it. That's important. That's important because there are many ways to play the Beatles' music in 2016. I like Das Homage's the best. I call it coloring inside the lines. Okay, I admit, Joyce and I once did go to the Paramount to see a Fab Four show a few years ago. There were 4 impersonators dressed exactly like the Beatles' little ties, using exactly the same instruments, and they looked exactly like the Fab Four. Kind of creeped me out a bit, actually. It was kind of like an animatronic Madame Tussauds wax museum with really good music. Das Homage is not that vibe. I think what they do is much groovier. First off, there are 3 of them, and though they're all strikingly handsome, they don't look much like the Beatles. These 3 guys, Boris Magic, John Tenney, and Frank Becker, are musicians. They're singer-songwriters. They're activists. They're organizers. They wear numerous other hats, musical and not musical. But when they play at local venues, PRN, Tin Whistle, Fellini's, live on WTJU, all over the place, they don't erase who they are and draw in a photorealistic copy of Paul, John, George, or Ringo. They bring with them the brilliant spectrum of independent musicianship which defines them individually. And with that spectrum, they set out to color these songs. They color the songs they adore with their own crayons, colored pencils, their own highlighters, and you'll see that they sound great, and you'll recognize the songs, but they color. And they color inside the lines, which is important. They don't take the structure of the song and disperse it to the winds. They're not remixing, they're coloring inside the lines. And they have the utmost respect for the songs themselves. For each musician, this respect began early. At a recent Das Homage practice, lead guitarist Boris Magic recalled an annual tradition of watching Hard Day's Night on TV in the winter, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He grew up in Belgrade, Serbia. There were only 2 channels of TV. So, at 8 or 9 years old, Boris and his friends took tennis rackets, a crutch, cardboard drums, and they played along to a Beatles album that a friend got a hold of. Only to find out a couple of years later that Beatles album had actually been a fake tribute band, not the Beatles themselves playing. But the beautiful thing is the songs were still there. The songs were still there. And they're still here tonight. John Tenney playing drums for Das Homage is also an accomplished guitarist. He'll play electronic drum set tonight. This is unheard of in the times of Ringo's Starr, an electronic drum set, but I think Ringo would have loved to play on it back then even, on Revolver. This is a changeable instrument. It's perfect for coloring the tones of the sometimes psychedelic lines you must draw in on these songs. Like so many of the beautiful people in this room tonight, John is spreading the love. He's trying to make a world more just, more livable. Earlier this month, John organized a benefit at the Ante Room. He raised a bunch of money for hurricane relief for Haiti. Thank you, John. So, but he's not done. Put on your calendars. Oh, sorry, Nina Simone. This is the beauty of the real thing. It falls on the floor. It's not a file on your computer. You gotta pick it up. Nina Simone. Put on your calendars, November 21st at the Ante Room, a benefit for the Dakota Indians fighting the pipeline. They need the money. John's going to have a concert. He's going to raise money. He's going to send it all to them. One of John's earliest encounters with the Beatles was visual, as many of our encounters with albums have been, very important. Staring at the weird, colorful album art of Sgt. Pepper before finally screwing his courage to the sticking point and popping the LP on the turntable. Then Magical Mystery Tour was John's favorite happy, bright color childhood album, the cover art of which, not the music, the cover art inspired John and his sister to stage an entire musical mystery play with stuffed animals. So John, next year we hope to celebrate Magical Mystery Tour, and you've got to bring your stuffed animals back and do this show for us next year. In 12-year-old Frank Bector's bedroom's parents' bedroom, in his parents' bedroom upstairs, alongside the turntable, was a weird album. It was surrealistically twisted. It had a photo on the cover of people that weren't quite right. They were weird, and Frank saw it, and he remembered that photo freaked him out. It seemed simultaneously, kind of effete, uncool. It just didn't jive with him. And in fact, he said, quote, "Whoever they were, they didn't follow the Van Halen-esque cool that I knew. He didn't follow the cool he knew." Well, who were they? They were the Beatles. And the album was Rubber Soul. One day, Frank put it on. Ultimately, he listened to that album hundreds of times. Frank has stuck with the Beatles. But as a lifelong singer-songwriter, he performs his own stuff all around town as well. He collaborates with some of the most groovalicious musicians on this planet, including Jason Burke, Ann O'Brien, who I believe is here tonight. Ann O'Brien. Mark Lipson, Susan Munson, here tonight. Get a chance to hear these guys, you got to hear them. Yep. So that's coloring inside the lines. And then I have a final page of thank yous that I didn't write down. These are thank yous that I'm going to do the final course of thank yous. My first is Chris Ward. I don't think Chris is here tonight, but Chris works with me almost every day, and we do projects and all around the JPA neighborhood. We come out here and work on the Appalachian Trail. He and I started working on projects in 1987, so we're almost at the 30-year part, not quite 50. And Chris is one of the most well-read, has one of the best musical collections in town. He's got CDs covering the entire wall. He's an amazing guy, but he's very private. And you might not even know that he'd read every Simenon novel, Georges Simenon, 400 novels or whatever. Extremely well-read man, reads some of them in French. But he cannot be here tonight. But some people who can be here tonight. My daughter's second parents. I think everybody should have a second set of parents. Because your own parents are total dorks. And even if they're not total dorks, you think they're total dorks. And you need somebody. And Lisa and Stefan Gorsh are right there. Thank you for being Ivy's second parents, teaching her to be a foodie. That's good or bad, but anyway, we're glad you're here, and thank you for being so wonderful to Ivy over the years. The matriarch of my extended family in Virginia is also here, Sue Bector. When you mention the word mother-in-law, you expect a stream of stupid, Chris Rock jokes. I can't do that. What I have to do is possibly start talking about the art of Rubens or beautiful things, sculpture, whatever, generosity, My mother-in-law is the matriarch of an amazing clan, but she is the most amazing. And she's here tonight. She's frequently at concerts of Das Homage and other places where her son, Frank Bechter, the bassist, plays. And I want to thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for having that Beatles album next to your when Frank was 12. You made it all happen. Lots of people to thank. I could go on with these courses, but I'm limited to 15 minutes. I think I'm pretty close to Mark's 15 minutes of last year. So, I want to thank one more person, and that's Frank himself. And Frank, I didn't ask if I could tell this story because, I don't know, you might have said no. And then, when Frank was, I guess, 15, Joyce, my wife, Frank's sister, lovely, lovely sister, wanted to get Frank the thing he wanted the most for his birthday. And what Frank wanted the most for his birthday, 3 years after listening to Revolver, he was 15 years old, was a microphone. And believe it or not, in 1980, microphones were hard to come by. You couldn't just order one from Amazon. You couldn't just, consumer electronics were heinously expensive. To get a good EV mic, it paid $300 in 1980. That's tough when you're working at Perkins, right, Joyce? So Joyce came to me and she said, Eric, I built loudspeakers at the time. I did a lot of hi-fi. She said, you know a lot about this stuff. Could you maybe go into the big city and find somehow, classified ads back then, a microphone to give to my brother for his 15th birthday? And I did. And I got him a beautiful, polished, old-fashioned electric voice, with a case, and it had a big boom and a stand. And Frank didn't know this was happening. But I showed up to hand it off to Joyce. And we were, and we were friends, but nothing more. And I remember that she was so thrilled. This is a beautiful microphone, and so happy that she threw her arms around me. And she gave me a kiss on the cheek. And that was it. I still feel that kiss.